per a tweet from Michael Benson, the Roman Gonzalez versus Juan Estrada rematch unification is seemingly not happening next as hoped. Chocolatito is standing firm that he should get over $1 million for the fight. If they think I'm crazy, I can't do anything about that. I'm collecting what I am worth. And I talked about this in a previous video. I'll leave the link to it in the description box. I think what Chocolatito will find, I think what many of you out there following this story will find, is that a lot of people sympathize with Chocolatito's sentiments.
Yeah.
I mean, there are fighters out there who aren't showing half the ambition of a Chocolatito raking in just those kinds of paydays. This is what Danny Garcia gets every time he picks a cherry. The same applies to Leo Santa Cruz.
Just about.
In fights that don't have as much on the line as this fight does. Because Chocolatito's a champion, and so's Juan Francisco Estrada. You know what Danny Garcia got for that Ivan Redkach fight? He got $1 million for that fight. $1 million fucking dollars for that fight. Leo Santa Cruz made close to $1 million fighting Miguel Flores. Close to $1 million for fighting Miguel fucking Flores. So Chocolatito and Juan Francisco Estrada shouldn't make $1 million in a unification fight?
$1 million apiece.
Look, we all know how the business works. We all know that what a fighter gets is based on fan reaction, marquee value. That's what determines what kind of prices the fighters get and what kind of prices the fighters don't get. But that's just it. I don't think that Chocolatito is out of line here. DAZN needs to put on fights that people want to watch.
To boost subs.
And this is that kind of fight. And this demand from Chocolatito is not so outlandish, so far out of this world, that they should meet it. That if you want this fight to happen and you want it to happen in a timely fashion, I don't think Chocolatito's asking for a lot here.
Over $1 million apiece?
It's going to sound familiar, but they paid Mikey Garcia $7 million fucking dollars to fight Jesse Vargas. They were ready to give Jamal Charlo that same amount of money for fighting Demetrius Andrade. And neither one of those two guys are big names. They were ready to give that to Gervonta Davis to cross over and fight Tevin Farmer. The same applies. So you can't find it in DAZN's wallet to give Chocolatito and Juan over $1 million apiece?
Yeah, man.
No, I honestly don't think that Chocolatito's asking a lot. And I understand the sentiment that it's not Christmas and the fighters get paid based on their own marquee value, but I think that this fight will draw enough eyes, draw enough subscriptions to justify that kind of a demand. It's a high-level fight, a high-quality fight between two high-quality fighters. The silver lining here, if there is one, is that I think DAZN can flip the bill. And Eddie Hearn is about making the fight, you know. Chocolatito is being co-promoted by Matchroom, after all. If these guys are going to fight anyway, it's going to be on DAZN.
They got the scratch.
So, in spite of this news, per this tweet from Michael Benson, I'm still hopeful. I'm still optimistic. I still think that the fight comes off.
Yeah, I think it'll happen.
Because I don't think that Roman Gonzalez is asking a lot. In junior middleweight news, or should I say middleweight news, Julian Williams plans to move up to 160 after 2 more fights. He was quoted as saying, "I think I have another 2 fights and then I'm going up to the middleweight division." The former 154-pound title holder said on a recent episode of Time Out with Ray Flores. Williams, who recently recovered from surgery involving his eyes, teased that those 2 fights could consist of an interim bout followed by a title shot against the winner of a possible unification fight between Jason Rosario and Jermell Charlo. From what I hear, I think Rosario and Jamel is going to unify, fight for the undisputed championship, Williams said. After that, though, it's bon voyage to the division in which he has operated his entire career. 160 is the future, absolutely, he said. Those extra 6 pounds is a lot, Williams explained. Only fighters understand how hard it is to cut weight, what it feels like to have an extra 6 pounds. I've been fighting at this weight since I was 15. When I went to the Silver Gloves as a 15-year-old, I fought at 147 pounds. When I came back, I turned open class and I fought at 152, and when I turned pro, I turned 154. So I've been fighting between 147 and 154 my entire life. So I think it's getting to be a little much. So I'm gonna go up soon. In reference to the junior middleweight division, despite the enthusiasm the division has garnered over the years, Williams believes it's still vastly overlooked. I think it's the most competitive division in boxing, but for whatever reason, the division don't get that much credit. The original 8 division always gets the most credit. 35, 47, 60, like heavyweight, they're always going to get more credit than the junior divisions, which only came around in the 70s. That's over my head. Nothing I can do about that. On what went wrong in the Rosario fight, Williams preferred to stay mum. The only thing that people care about are the results, he said. History is not going to say Julian Williams lost the fight to Jason Rosario because of X, Y, and Z. A very respectable demeanor, a very mature way to handle a loss. For what it's worth, Julian Williams has never had any shortage of character. He's always exhibited a lot of class in victory and defeat. As far as Jason Rosario and Jermall Charlo fighting for what Julian called the undisputed junior middleweight championship, that fight is anything but. Oh, it's a unification match. Yeah, there's 3 world titles on the line in that fight. But it ain't no undisputed title fight. In order for it to be an undisputed title fight, the WBO title has to be on the line. And last time I checked, Patrick Teixeira, Brazil's own Patrick Teixeira, he's still the WBO champion. As far as I know, he's still supposed to be fighting Brian Castaño.
Let's clear that up.
Now, because the clock's ticking for Julian, as far as how long can he continue to make junior middleweight, I don't know that he's going to get to fight the winner of that fight, because I don't even know if that fight is next. And this guy's talking about moving up. What is it, 2-3 fights from now? What is it, 2 fights at 154, then he's moving up?
Yeah.
In order for the stars to align, Charlo versus Rosario would have to be the very next fight. Last I checked, Rosario's handler, Samson Lukowicz, he's talking about holding out. He's talking about he wants that fight to be a pay-per-view. Well, I don't know that you could bill that fight as a pay-per-view in 2 fights.
But that's what he said.
Not only am I unsure that Julian Williams will stay at 54 long enough to fight the winner of that fight, but I'm not sure who he's going to fight when he gets to 160. The PBC stable ain't at 160 what it is at 147. At 147, they've got a stronghold, most of the talent. But at 160, not so much.
What are you going to do? You're going to have a rematch with Jermall?
Assuming Jermall Charlo is still even there 2 fights from now when this move upstairs is supposed to be going down. For all we know, by the time Julian moves up into the middleweight division, Jermall Charlo could be moving up into the super middleweight division. He said he's looking to go up there. He said he's looking to fight David Benavidez.
So who's up there for Julian to fight?
That is, who does the PBC have up there? Who will they have up there 2 fights from now for Julian Williams to fight? I mean, it wouldn't be a problem if the PBC didn't have that island policy of theirs, if any one of their fighters could be matched against anyone else's fighters, but we all know by now that that's not the case. So you gotta wonder that if Julian Williams plans on moving up 2 fights from now, who's gonna be there for him to fight right now? 3 of the 4 middleweight titles sit on the DAZN side of things. That's where they are. Canelo Alvarez is still the full-fledged WBA champion. Demetrius Andrade is still the full-fledged WBO champion. Gennady Golovkin, he's got the IBF, with Jermall Charlo holding the WBC. But 2 fights from now, that could change. I don't know. Maybe Canelo Alvarez vacates his WBA title and Ryota Murata's elevated to full champion. But Murata ain't no PBC fighter. He's not on your side of the street. Maybe Demetrius Andrade moves up, fights Billy Joe Saunders, vacates his WBO to win Billy's. The guys in line to be Demetrius' successor as WBO champion at middleweight, they ain't PBC fighters. They ain't on your side of the street. What are you looking at, Kanat Islam, Jaime Munguia?
Liam Williams?
With Gennady Golovkin and his IBF title, it's anybody's guess what the fuck's gonna happen with that fucking guy. So, you'll excuse me for asking. Julian Williams has outgrown 154 and means to move up to 160. I don't hold it against him. He's doing what he's got to do. But I'm left wondering, who's he going to fight when he gets there? Because unless the PBC's island policy changes, that guy's going to be up the creek without a paddle. And finally, in heavyweight news, Bob Arum had this to say. He says, Ruiz, who can't punch, KO'd Joshua. Then so can Pulev.
Joshua has a fight before the end of the year with my guy, Kubrat Pulev, a very tough Bulgarian. And Tyson has a 3rd fight to do with Wilder, and that's not an easy fight. So again, sure, if they come through those fights, why wouldn't they get together and do a 2-fight deal for Fury and Joshua?
Arum believes Joshua has a bad chin and can't take a good shot. Joshua has been dropped and rocked in past fights. Based on Joshua's history, Arum backs Pulev to win by knockout.
Joshua has a chinny chin chin, and if he got knocked out by Andy Ruiz, who can't punch, look at Andy's record. He's fought all of his fights with us.
And I've broached this subject several times in passing, but if we explore it a little deeper here, I think it's a bit unfair to say that Andy Ruiz can't punch.
Yeah.
I remember way back when it was Andy Ruiz versus Joseph Parker for what was then the vacant WBO title. Joseph Parker, he was a more aggressive guy in those days. More of a body puncher, too. This was several years ago. But in that Andy Ruiz fight, I remember how much respect Joseph gave Andy Ruiz. That wasn't a gunfight. He chose not to make it a shootout with Andy. He wasn't laying into Andy the way he was laying into other guys in the past. I'm of the opinion it's because he couldn't, because he had to respect Andy Ruiz's punch. He had to respect Andy Ruiz's hand speed. A guy like Andy Ruiz, a very heavy-set, portly fellow, stocky, stumpy.
But sturdy.
Flat-footed, standing on his whole foot, generating power from the ground up, coupled with some of the fastest hands mid-range to inside in the heavyweight division.
Good speed.
Good countering ability. Good ability to hit a guy with a shot that he doesn't see coming.
Mm-hmm.
You're telling me that this guy can't punch?
Oh, come on, Bob.
I don't think that old Bob is being entirely honest with us here. I don't think old Bob is being entirely honest with himself. No, Andy can punch. But you know, even if Andy can punch, there still is the first Anthony Joshua fight to reconcile.
There is.
Anthony, he didn't take those shots too good. So is it the way that Bob Arum says it is? Anthony Joshua's got a chinny chin. I mean, this is the same Anthony Joshua who got hit with a laser right hand from Vladimir Klitschko. Guy with 53 fucking knockouts. Anthony took that shot, hit the deck, got back up, won the fight. He locked horns with Alexander Povetkin, very explosive fighter.
Very skilled.
One of the best left hooks in the division. He took one of those left hooks right to the face. Fought with a broken nose. Went on to win that fight too. Win that fight by way of knockout. But he gets in there with Andy, and the first little nothing shot that lands,
Frazzles him.
he couldn't take it. One is left to wonder why. How is it that you can take a laser right hand from a Klitschko or an explosive left hook from a Povetkin?
White, too.
Collect yourself, get back up, and go on to win the fight. But with Andy, you know, it was too much for you. What happened?
And then I had some inside information also because we had a fighter named Joey DeVecco in camp with Joshua who gave Joshua a concussion. So
Yeah, there was a lot of rumors about that before the Ruiz.
it was true. It was true. Yeah. So I just knew that he wasn't going to be in his right mind, his right state, like Anthony wasn't going to be.
That is Serafina, who used to work for Greg Cohen Promotions, who promoted Jarrell Miller, and one Joey DeVecco. The same Joey DeVecco that was rumored to have given Anthony Joshua a concussion. Serafina confirms that Anthony Joshua was indeed concussed ahead of that Andy Ruiz fight. So perhaps the reason that Anthony Joshua wasn't able to take the shots from Ruiz is because he went into that fight height the way a lot of us thought he went into that fight height. You know, Serafina, she don't work for Matchroom. She ain't Team Anthony Joshua. She's got no reason to cover up or apologize for that guy.
She don't.
The only reason she knows what she knows is because she had insider information from having worked with both Jarrell Miller, Joey DeVecco, and Greg Cohen Promotions.
That's how she knew.
She don't even work for them no more. In case you're questioning this testimony from Serafina, in case you're wondering how it is she came across this information that she was privy to Anthony Joshua having a concussion he suffered as a result of sparring Joey DeVecco, if you're wondering whether or not that's true, if you're wondering how it is she would have known this, it's because she was working for Greg Cohen Promotions at the time. Greg Cohen, who co-promoted both Jarrell Miller and Joey DeVecco.
That confirms it.
It's what I always thought. But Anthony Joshua, that glare in his eyes, glazed, dilated, looked like a guy wasn't all there during the ring walk leading up to the Andy Ruiz fight. So if this is your shining example of how Anthony Joshua doesn't have a chin, doesn't take the best punch, it would behoove you to know that he went into that fight with a concussion. And if you're logical, if you're level-headed,
If you are.
you'll understand how that might have affected his performance in the fight. Now, Anthony Joshua himself, he made no excuses. He owned up to the loss and guaranteed victory in the rematch. That's what he did. He's a man of his word. But better still, this is relevant to Bob Arum's comments. He used the Andy Ruiz fight.
It's an example of how Anthony Joshua can't take a punch.
You notice how he didn't mention Anthony Joshua eating a left hook from Dillian White. You notice how he didn't mention Anthony Joshua eating a left hook from Alexander Povetkin. You notice how he didn't talk about how Anthony Joshua picked himself up from a right hand by way of Vladimir Klitschko. He brought up the Andy Ruiz fight. So what is it? Is it that you're not privy to this information? You didn't know that Anthony Joshua was concussed in the Andy Ruiz fight? Because I'll tell you what, unless you're going to have Joey DeVecco punch Anthony Joshua in the head ahead of his fight with Kubrat Pulev, you're saying a mouthful.
Yeah.
You know promoters. They're going to talk that guy up. Promoters are going to promote. It's what they do. It's their bread and butter. But you're saying Andy Ruiz can't punch, and you're saying Anthony Joshua can't take a punch. You're saying Kubrat Pulev's going to knock him out. This is what you're saying. And you know what? there still are a lot of people out there that are of this opinion. There still are a lot of people out there that question Anthony Joshua's wherewithal based on that fight.
They do.
Maybe it's because they're not privy to this information. Maybe they think this is all coming by way of Anthony Joshua apologists, guys in a hurry to remove that from the annals of boxing history.
Maybe.
Or maybe it's just willful ignorance. Maybe they don't want to take this into account because they'd rather believe that the guy can't take a punch because it suits their narrative, it suits their agenda.
That's what they want to hear.
I mean, who wants to skim through articles and look up quotes, review information, cross-reference it? Who wants to do all that when you can just opt for willful ignorance and convince yourself of whatever is more convenient, whatever is more to your liking?
Well, ignorance is bliss. You don't say that for nothing.
I'll tell you what. Guy going into a fight having previously been concussed, that's a pretty relevant piece of information, if I do say so myself. That strikes me as the kind of thing you'd want to know when you're assessing, gauging a fighter's performance, gauging that fighter's ability to take a hard shot.
Call me crazy.
But that strikes me as the kind of thing you'd want to know ahead of a fight. That strikes me as the kind of thing that's pretty relevant to the conversation if we're rating Anthony Joshua's ability to take a hard shot, not just from Andy Ruiz, but from Kubrat Pulev. Kubrat Pulev, who couldn't put away a 39-year-old Rydell Booker. So he's going to put away Anthony Joshua? Yeah, I think that good old Bob, he needs to reevaluate, reassess his perspectives on Anthony Joshua's wherewithal. That is if he's shooting for accuracy. He's going to promote a fight, which is what he's doing. Then he's going to continue to tell you that Kubrat Pulev's going to knock out Anthony Joshua. But I'll tell you what, you can believe that if you want to. Just don't bet on it.